Hi guys! I'm back with the second part of BTS MBTI Lab video. In the previous part, if you haven't seen that one, I was reacting to the first part that they put up. I thought since I know a little bit about MBTI, it would be a fun reaction video to do. Here's the second part, where they are basically doing discussions on T versus F distinction, P versus J distinction, all the four letters of the MBTI. So let's get into the video now.
그럼 이제 뭐 프롬프터에 나오는 밸런스 게임 질문 한번 보시고 본인이 생각하는 답을 선택하여 화이트보드에 여러분 적어주시면
밸런스 게임
됩니다.
재밌겠다. 자, 문제 나오네요.
자, 친한 친구와 둘이서 밥을 먹기로 했는데 친구가 말도 없이 다른 친구를 데려왔을 때 내 밥.
이거 말을 해야죠.
Okay, so right off the bat, eating in Korea it's a whole thing. Their reactions will probably be strongly influenced by cultural circumstances. Right from the top, we also see that Jhope has some strong opinions about that. So they're saying they're testing extroversion versus introversion, but this kind of seems more like perceiving versus judging, like going with the flow versus being a little bit more picky about these things.
자, B 씨?
저는 티내지 않고 자리에 조금 있다가 집에 간다.
무서운 사람. 무서운 사람이네. 근데 되게 예의 있다.
왜냐면은 화나긴 하는데 그래도 어느 정도 티는 안 내요.
그래도 민망한.
Okay, V's response is pretty it seems very F-driven. Whether that's FI or FE, I'm not sure. But it definitely strikes me as a kind of manipulative use of F function. Not that I'm saying that he's being manipulative or anything, but I'm just saying the way he's using the function is kind of being controlling with the function. He's using it to create this social situation that's a little bit awkward, to show his discomfort without having to discuss it, which kind of makes me think FI.
그렇지, 그렇지. 이게 그냥 즉각적인 반응이구나, 바로. 저도 비슷해요.
안녕하세요 할 것 같은데.
누구죠?
누구셔?
바로.
그렇지,
근데 속으로는 되게 불쾌하겠죠, 약간. 뭔데?
그러니까.
뭔데 말도 안 하고 데리고 오지?
저는 딱 이렇게 얘기할 것 같아요.
뭐함?
진짜 머리 물음표 가능할 거예요.
So Jimin, Jin, and RM, they seem to have a very kind of immediate reaction to that, which makes me think some sort of strong extroverted perceiving function, so SE or NE. It just seems like they're making observations instead of drawing any conclusions yet.
말을 하는 게 중요해서 저는 말을 왜 안 해? 기분이 약간 썩 좋지는 않을 것 같아요.
말을 왜 안 하냐?
말을 하고 될 거야지.
보통
Yeah, so Suga's just going straight to the point and asking, why didn't you tell me? Just being very direct. I keep going back and forth between TI and TE for him, but I honestly think this could be just a general thinker response. Also could be a response by somebody who has good FE, being able to handle that, but I think they would be more concerned about social harmony and preserving that and doing that later, not facing them head on. So it just feels like a thinker response.
목이 상관없음.
너 상관없는데
오히려 좋아.
근데 얘기해줬으면 더 좋았고.
오히려.
So JK is the only one who doesn't seem to mind, which is refreshing. I would say that his response, rather than introverted versus extroverted, appears to be more perceiving. It just seems to be kind of go with the flow.
주말에 쉬는 시간이 생긴 당신. A. 주중에는 회사였으니까 주말엔 밖에 나가야 한다. 주중에는 회사였으니까 주말엔 집에 있어야 된다.
그걸 왜 나가?
회사였으니까. 제가 완전 이거다.
자, 하나, 둘, 셋.
남준이는 A일 것 같아. 남준이 A.
Okay, so I think that with their line of work in the entertainment industry, to be fair, even the most extroverted of extroverts would probably want some free time when they can get it. So is that a good question considering the circumstances? I'm the only one who is apparently extroverted or who would go out. It can be an indicator of extroversion, but it could also be an indicator that he just wants to change his environment. Maybe he's just trying to get out, not necessarily as out in company, but just out away from the mundane routine. Could just be any seeking kind of novelty. Okay, so now we're going on to S versus N distinction.
멍 때린다는 것은 깊은 생각에 잠기는 것, 아무 생각을 하지 않는 것.
아니 멍 때린다는 거는 저 말 그대로 해석해야 되는 거 아니야?
Okay, so yeah, that's a very good point that Suga brought up, because I was about to ask the same thing. The way the question is presented is a little bit odd, because they're not even asking, do you do that a lot? Do you space out a lot? Or do you do that kind of spacing out, like that they would provide the definition? But yeah, Suga's kind of question makes me think that he's almost trying to TI nitpick the answer and he's trying to understand the question so that he can give the right answer.
근데
길을
이게
이제 지울 필요가
사람들은
없겠다.
아무 생각을 하지 않는 것이라고 생각하는데 작은 생각은 해요.
자,
아니
여기서
나는 생각 때문에 멍 때리게 돼요.
나도 그래.
Yeah, I agree absolutely with V and JK on this one, because when you space out, you do that specifically because you're trying to isolate your thoughts, you're trying to remove yourself from the environment so that you can better focus on the thoughts, right? And also, yeah, it's impossible not to have thoughts.
계량기를 사용하는 것 자체가 스트레스 감으라는 거.
아 무조건 정량이지.
아 무조건 A지 무슨 소리야? 아 무조건 감이지.
아니 나는
Okay, so measuring things when cooking, yes or no? For me personally, where am I on the scale of Jin to J-Hope? Definitely here. First of all, this one is weirdly too specific because they're specifying when cooking. Okay, but what if the person just doesn't cook that much? They're gonna want to measure because they don't know how to go about it. But if you do cook a lot, you generally develop some kind of a feeling for how much of the stuff needs to go in there.
그러니까 이게 보니까 B가 S예요. B가 S고 A가 N이야. 근데 저는 B거든요. 제가 왜
Yeah, no, I don't think that's an SN preference. He's saying that B is S because they're being specific about the measurements and N is just kind of abstract and cooking. I mean, you could make that argument, but you could also make the opposite argument that measuring things specifically is more N trait because they're living in their N world and don't have that much feel for the world around them, right? For the physical. And that S would have a more instinctive understanding of ingredients and of measurements, right?
암기를 해야 할 때 나의 암기법은 무작정 외우기 아니면 암기해야 하는 것을 완전히 이해하기.
자, 발표. 자, 왜 제가 A인지, 왜 B인지.
아니 저는 진짜 원래는 암기해야 되는 걸 완전히 이해해야지 제가 이해하고 암기가 되거든요. 근데 그러기에는 너무 시간이 오래 걸리고 맨날 거의 막판에 몰아서 하고 하다 보니까
그치.
무작정 외우게 돼요.
Obviously, if you want to learn stuff, you're gonna have to put the puzzle pieces together, right? You're gonna want to create, you're never going to have all the puzzle pieces, but you're going to want to put them together so that they're forming some kind of a unity and that they're not just floating around because they're gonna get all mixed up. And that's what cramming does. You're just trying to cram in as many puzzle pieces as you can without actually attaching them or like fitting them together, and then you forget. That's an interesting answer from Suga because it seems like he wants to learn in depth, but that he just doesn't have the time. I would like to know what specifically he's thinking of. It seems like he's trying to TE optimize the process of learning, but it could also be some kind of a TI-SE combo if we take him for ISTP, like he was typed. Or maybe he just has a good understanding that certain situations allow for in-depth learning and certain ones don't. They're not really asking what you prefer, they're asking how you remember more. So maybe they have a perception, yeah, I learn more by cramming. But do you actually? Is that your preferred method? Do you actually learn more? There's some nuance that gets lost here. Also, they're saying that this is a S versus N distinction, but I would say that if anything, it's TE versus TI. In-depth TI learning or optimized TE learning.
저는 일단은 뭔가 좀 이해를 해야지 암기가 돼요. 자, 나 무작정 외우면 암기가 안 돼요.
봐봐.
I mean, at least J-Hope's answer is consistent that it's TI and he would have TI if he has FE.
봐봐. 제가 봐봐. 춤을 이해하잖아.
아 그런 뜻이구나.
춤을 이해하니까 저렇게 할 수 있는 거예요.
야, 춤 잘 추는 애들 다 B야.
와.
멀리
내가 그래서 A야?
잘 추는.
아니, 봐봐. 춤 셋이
빨리 이해를 하는 거야, 얘네들은.
Yes, see, but now they're talking about dancing, which there's just no way you're gonna learn dancing intuitively because dancing, like learning a choreography, requires cramming. It requires you to do repetitions of the moves. Of course, it's gonna help you more if you are good at dancing, just naturally good at moving your body.
이성과 감성. 자, 시험 공부하러 카페 갔는데 놀러 온 친구 둘 중에 더 하나는 사람은 A. 나 고생한다고 음료 한 잔 더 시켜줬는데 가져오다가 바로 엎질러서 전해요. 요점 정리 다 적신 민윤지 씨. 자, B. 내가 화장실 갔다 온 사이에 밤새서 정리한 요점 노트 바로 세벼버린 정정순.
저거
For me personally, I would be more mad at the person who spilled the drinks on me. Not that I would yell at them or anything, because especially if I know that they're coming from a good place, I wouldn't hold that against them. But like, my notes are ruined now, and the other person just took pictures. I don't know if why that's supposed to be a problem.
나는 페어하지 못한 거에 약간 더 화를 느끼는 것 같아.
그러니까 이게 공정이냐, 약간 그런 거냐, 이제
그치.
이런 거거든요.
저거는 실수잖아.
A는 날 위에 뭔가를 갖고 오다가
그러니까.
엎드린 거잖아.
하나, 둘, 셋.
A면은 성격 문제 있는 거다 이거.
It seems like there's more harm done when your notes are ruined. Like, if somebody just takes pictures, yeah, they're kind of betraying your trust. But your notes that you've worked hard on are ruined.
이런 일
아니
하니까.
아니야, 나는-
찍어간 건데
난
찍어간
둘다
건데
이럴 것
나한테
같은데.
피해가 없는 거면은
그냥
우리 너무
내버린 거야.
과몰입했어 지금 다.
Exactly. That seems to be a bigger problem. Was the question about who would you be more mad at, or what would make you feel worse? Because obviously I would be more mad at the second person, because the first one was an accident. But what would actually make things objectively worse is that if your notes are ruined. So JK is making a fair point. He just took photos. He didn't do anything wrong. They all seem to have a bit of an F response to this one, or maybe like FI, that you're hurt that somebody wronged you.
친구가 시험을 망쳤다고 너무 속상해. 야, 나 이번에 시험 망했어. 그때 당신이 할 말은?
Is one supposed to be T and the other one F? I don't really see much of a distinction between how the questions are asked. They're both kind of showing empathy. At best, it seems to be more of, the first one is more like FE empathy.
자, 친구가 와서 나한테 야, 너 지금 하는 일 네 적성에 별로 안 맞는 것 같아. 아, 차라리 그만두지.
근데 내 답변들이 다 너무 약간
라고 했을
아니
때
근데 전제가 부족하긴 해 지금.
그렇죠, 사실.
내가 얼마나 이 일을 사랑하고 내가 좋아하는지에 대한 데이터가 없는 상태.
근데 이제 형은 그런 게 먼저 나온 거죠, 그러면. 그러니까 내가 직관적으로 들었을 때 내가 뭐라고 대답할 것 같은지가 제일 이건 핵심이야.
나는 어느 부분에서 안 맞는데
Okay, yeah, that's true. He's making a good point. I totally agree with him that you need context. Do you like the job? Have you been complaining about the job? That he asked about whether he likes the job might feel like FI thing. Do I have an emotional connection with that? Honestly, it just seems like he's asking for clarification, for context, which could totally be TI as well. But I do think it's one of the introverted judging functions here, so TI or FI.
니나 잘해, 니나.
니나 잘 사세요?
오늘 제일 흥분하신 거.
아니, 니나 잘해.
아니
니나 잘하세요.
사실 저런 질문들은 더 이상 나랑 친구를 하지 않겠다라는 질문들이잖아.
아니,
Okay, so RM and Jin are going with mind your own business. That feels like it's either like a feeler type response, or it could also just be some kind of a NE humor thing going on here. Suga is asking for clarification, maybe TI, investigation into the question. Jimin and J-Hope just seem kind of not really questioning the question. Just kind of seem to be trying to maintain the harmony, I guess. It seems the most FE out of everything, I would say. I find V's response quite hilarious because he's saying it's better than yours. Okay, so again, I can kind of see this being some kind of an NE humor type response. Yeah, NE FI type response maybe. And Jungkook also seems quite TI investigatory. I'm surprised with Jungkook because I'm starting to see more FE and TI in this video.
좋아요.
재호 씨 뭐예요?
저요? 저 똑같아요. 뭐 그냥
고민해볼게, 유유.
포기는 안 한다.
형 고민 안 하실 거잖아요.
말만 하는 거죠. 일단 뭐 예의상 말은 해야 되니까 답.
Yeah, I guess more FE evidence from J-Hope because he's just saying, I have to say something polite. I won't really think about it, but I have to be polite in that situation.
당했어요. 친구가 전화 와서 제일 첫 마디로 야, 보험은 들었어? 아, 이게 중요한.
I mean, it seems like a reasonable question to ask at the end of the day. It's an important thing.
아니 나 실제로 나는 친구한테 저렇게 이야기를 한 적이 있어.
제 티 아니야?
나도 한 적 있어.
야, 왜냐면 나는
중요하거든.
괜찮냐고 먼저 해줘야지. 병실에 누워 있는데 전화 와서 보험 들었냐 이게
So they definitely giving off thinker vibe, Yoongi and Jin. JK's explanation, it doesn't seem like FI, like I would be hurt. It seems more like FE, that would be impolite or that would be inappropriate in that situation. I do think it's F related, but it's FE related rather than FI in this case, the way he's justifying it.
친구를 위해 요리를 만들어줬는데 내가 먹어봐도 좀 맛이 없다. 그렇지만 친구가 나에게 해줬으면 하는 반응은 A. 날 위해서 이걸 만들었다고? 대박, 진짜 너무 고마워, 진짜 너무 감동이다. B. 처음 맛에 대한 솔직한 평가를 한 다음 고마워.
I'm probably self-aware enough that if I thought that my food doesn't taste that good, I wouldn't give my food to them. But if they happen to not like it for whatever reason, like maybe it's just not their type of food, I would definitely want them to tell me so that I can improve it next time.
내가 발전이 그래도 고맙다고 해주면
근데 처음 맛
발전이 있지 맛 평가를 해줘야
난
더
발전.
맛있게 더 재밌게.
근데 저렇게 맛 평가하고 고마움을 표현하면은 맛 평가할 때 안 좋은 평가부터 먼저 하면은
그렇지, 나도 그래.
난 저 사람이랑 친구 못 해요.
Okay, so V is definitely having a very F response. I'm not sure if it's FI or FE. I mean, I'm already pretty sure that he has FI, but I'm not trying to presuppose when I'm analyzing the answers. I'm not just trying to assume that he's that type, and now I'm trying to fit his responses to that type.
친구가 요즘 나한테 뭔가 화난 것처럼 보인다. 나는 친구한테 어떻게 할까? A. 일주일이든 한 달이든 내 생각을 충분히 정리한다. 제가 왜 화났지? 그 다음에 연락을 한다. B. 뭐가 문제인지 왜 화가 나는지 바로 야, 뭐 너 나한테 기분 나쁜 거 있냐? 라고 바로 전화부터 해본다.
난 바뀌었어. 이 시간의 미덕이라는 걸 알게 된 이유.
저도 A인 것 같아요.
나도 A.
나도 A.
Okay, so that one's interesting. That seems like a communication thing. The second one seems more thinker because you're directly asking for clarification. But you can also consider that a lot of the times if something is wrong in the relationship, whether that's friendship or a romantic relationship, maybe thinker types wouldn't even see that something is wrong because they would be less perceptive to that. I would think about it first just to kind of make sure that I'm not overreacting. I don't think this is a good question to draw that line between thinking and feeling because you could have different justifications for reacting the way you do.
성격인 것 같아 이거는.
그치.
나는 좀 이런 시간이 너무 힘들어.
못 참는 거지.
내가 납득이 안 되면 힘들어.
저도 B예요. 누군가 저한테 이제 막 삐진 것 같고 이러면은 왜? 뭐가 문제인데? 얘기해봐.
나는
바로 이렇게 들어가요.
나는 이제 B로 인해서 저는 거의 싸우자고밖에 안 되니까 어느 정도 한 달까지 일주일까지 아니더라도
If we do presuppose that Jin and Suga both have TI, introverted thinking, but their reactions to this are different. So Jin is like, I have to know directly and solve the problem directly, which can definitely be a thinker thing. It's also interesting how Suga interprets it, because he says, I don't want to attack antagonistically with my questions. So it could also be TI-FE thing where his FE is maybe that well developed that he is trying to accommodate the other person in a way, like give them time.
제이홉 씨는 왜 A신가요?
저요?
당연히 B 아닌가?
오늘 일단 정리를 하고
당연히 B 아니야.
상대에게도 시간을 주는 거죠 어떻게 보면은. 봐 화가 났잖아. 화가 난 상태에서는 이미 이성을 잃었다고.
그렇지.
그 상태에서는 어떠한 대화가 되지 않는다고요.
아 그거는 맞아.
Yeah, it's interesting because J-Hope's reasoning is similar, and I think that's an FE kind of thing, and Suga's little piece of wisdom there. It's good that he's self-aware that he knows that when you're angry you're not rational, so that's actually his reasoning. He knows that his friend will not be reacting rationally if he really is angry, so he's giving him time to blow some steam off.
들어갑니다. 방 청소는 A. 난 주기적으로 해야 된다. B. 내가 원할 때만 치워도 된다. 자, 하나, 둘, 셋.
당연히 B 아니야?
Judging and perceiving is mostly about like organization. It can be organization of thoughts. It can also be organization of the external environment. But mostly, even if it's the external environment, it will be in a more abstract sense. This question is not really the best because there can be a lot of other factors that come into play.
주기적으로 내가 원할 수도 있는 거잖아요. 그러니까 근데 이건 내 마음가짐인 거잖아.
윤기야, 넌 너무 철학적이야.
저 사람은 자꾸 과 문제를 그냥 MBTI라고 그냥 둘 중 하나를
윤기야,
골라 제발.
너는 너무 철학적이야, 윤기야.
고르라고 그냥 제발 부탁이니까.
저 단순히 이 두 개 중 하나를 선택하란 말이야.
고르라고요 그냥.
No. Let him twist the questions. Please let him dig into the questions. Why?
여행을 가기로 했다. 여기서 제일 많이 갈려요. A. 비행기랑 숙소 예약 준비 끝. B. 첫째 날은 이거 하고 둘째 날은 그거 하고 셋째 날은 저거 하자. 어떤? 근데 이거는 저는 사실은 P인데 J로 바.
Okay, I don't know if I see a specific distinction here between perceiving and judging. Generally, judging types might have a preference to organize things. It kind of depends on your friend group. If you have a whole group of perceivers, for example, somebody's gonna have to do that. If you do it more, you're also kind of gonna develop those functions that can help you organize better. You might also grow into that role if you do it more often.
방탄소년단 멤버들끼리 여행을 가기로 했다. 이 중 맡고 싶은 역할은 중복 가능. 1번 계획, 2번 총무, 3번 맛집, 4번 오락, 5번 그냥 무임승차.
와, 나 무임승차를 못해. 당연히 5번 아니야?
Okay, does it sound bad if I say free riding along? I wouldn't mind planning in a more theoretical, abstract sense. Like, we will go to this and this place. But if I actually have to go out there and like book the hotel, book the tickets, what if something goes wrong? It's all gonna be my fault. And I'm too self-conscious to provide like entertainment. What if the people don't like it? Like, what if I choose some music and they don't like it?
자, 저는 3번입니다.
난 2번, 3번 둘 다 할 것 같아. 왜냐면 돈이랑 연관돼 있기 때문에.
5번.
Okay, so I guess JK, Jin, jhope, and I will just tag along.
핸드폰 액정이 금이 같다. 터치가 안 되는 건 아님. 근데 보기 거슬리네. 어떻게 할까? A. 시간 내서 바로 수리. B. 당장 터치가 안 되는 것도 아닌데 나중에 고치자.
4년 동안 안 바꿨습니다.
근데 이건 너무
I'll do you one better. I've had mine since 2016. If it works, then it's fine. I wouldn't mind.
A 너만 A야.
그래?
어.
미관상 안 좋잖아, 보기가. 미관상을 왜 신경 써?
Interesting, because he's got this kind of an aesthetic. Like his biggest problem is aesthetic. That kind of seems like an S thing.
오랜만에 쉬는 날이 생겨서 밖을 나가고자 함. 내가 할 행동은 A. 언제 어디로 무엇을 타고 왜 가는지 생각하고 외출. 무작정 나가는 거 싫다. B. 어디로 갈지 정하지 않았지만 일단 준비를 하고 나감. 발이 이끄는 그대로 가면
이거...
낭만파네. 자, 여기서 다 A고 한 명 B 나왔습니다. 바로 낭만파. B.
난 무조건. 난 내비도 안 켜요. 그냥 내비.
No. Just him talking about this makes me anxious. No GPS, no destination, just follow your feet. No.
까고 나가야 돼.
나도 그건 안 돼.
근데 나는 이렇게 나가기까지 굉장히 오랜 노력이 걸려요.
나는 장소만 정해놔 딱.
나도 장소는 정할 것 같아.
거기가 닫혀 있는지 열려 있는지는 중요하지 않고.
근데 만약에 거기가 닫혔어도 딴 데 갈 거잖아요. 그냥.
그러면 이제 차 타가지고 다시 이제 폰 봐.
Okay, so now they're gonna share a few of their thoughts. So let's listen to that.
이게 이 선택지가 너무 부족하다는 게.
맞아.
여러 가지 우리 모든 답들이 다 주관식이면 모르겠다만.
그렇지.
그러다 보니까 여러분들 이건 그냥 재미로. 그리고 방탄소년단은 MBTI를 이렇게 생각한다. 요 정도만.
I like his approach. Maybe if they were shorter, it would be more efficient. Personally, I was thinking, yeah, you need to expand the options even more. He's like, the options are too limiting, so they should be shorter to make them more effective. Which is, it's an interesting approach, isn't it? So I like that he's thinking like that in that kind of way of tweaking the questions. It kind of feels like TE optimizing, but almost through some kind of a TI way of like perfecting a system, tweaking the little things that are wrong.
저는 일단 이 논쟁이 불붙은 것에 대해서 사람들이 요즘 진짜 화가 많고 진짜 놀 게 없구나.
그러니까.
젓가락을 밥 먹은 그 젓가락으로 계속 그렇게 입에 넣은 젓가락으로 계속 그걸 떼주는 거예요. 나는 그냥 가볍게 한번 싸우고 말 것 같아.
제이오 얘기 좀
그래, 제이오 해봐.
근데 서로 간에 믿음이 있으면 상관없는 거 아니에요?
그게 아니라 나는
가질 수도 있지.
그 정도도 못해서 먹을 거면 먹을 자격이 없다고 생각해. 아니 봐봐.
야, 저기
한 명만 희생하면 될 거야.
너도 왜?
언제까지 우리 싸우게 할 거예요?
그냥 했어.
언제까지 우리 싸우게 할 거야?
했는데
We don't talk about